Ini udah mulai, ini udah nge-link loh. Udah nggak? Mau masukin ini. Sebenarnya aku play. Itu kamu matiin.
The Master Program in Economics and Development, Faculty of Economics and Business, University.
Oke, coba kamu.
Belum ada yang masuk ya?
The Master Program in Economics.
Mau dimasukin?
Boleh?
Dimasukin sekarang, Bu.
Oke. Sama di style nggak apa-apa?
Economics and Development, Faculty of Economics and Business Development. With a vision to be a high-performance and sustainable master's program in economics and development in the field of development planning and regional finance at the national and international levels based on the noble values of national culture.
The Master of Economic and Development Studies, Faculty of Economic and Business, Universitas 11 Maret is accredited A at the national level. Our education is a multidisciplinary subject on economics. It focuses on the issue of politics and socio-economics as the special area of international and local development.
The Master Program in Economics and Development has a curriculum developed based on a strong theoretical basis and good analysis in the field of economics and development. Students are encouraged to create high-quality and beneficial research for the development of knowledge that can be published in accredited national journals and reputable international journals, and to have a real contribution to the community based on scientific ethics. The teaching and learning process is conducted through a teacher learning center and student learning center. The face-to-face meetings using TLC method consist of direct delivery of material by lecturers both directly and online. In an effort to create representative learning, the Master's Program in Economics and Development (FEB) provides supporting rooms such as classrooms, discussion rooms, conference rooms, laboratory, and a hall with internet access in all campus areas, and access to online academic journals and international research databases. The Master Program in Economics and Development, MEB, has professional academic staff who graduated from domestic and overseas universities. The academic staff also serve in a professional capacity at public and private firms. More than 70% of academic staff have successfully been selected to receive research grants from the Ministry of Higher Education and Research and the university in the last 4 years. For the success of the education program, the Master Program in Economics and Development has developed collaborations with institutions, companies, national and international organizations, which are continuously carried out and improved. The Master Program in Economics and Development, MEB, provides room for students to develop their skills through several supporting activities such as field study, visiting lectures, survey research, thesis writing workshop, and summer school. The alumni of the Master Program in Economics and Development mostly work in the public sector, and some become private employees. The Master Program in Economics and Development is ready to shape graduates that are prepared to compete, have broad coverage, and are adaptable to economic digitization. The Master Program in Economics and Development, Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas 11 Maret. The Master Program in Economics and Development was established to answer the challenge of technology and information development, which affects changes in human life. Wide coverage economic digitization demands various aspects of life to be ready to follow global development. With a vision to be a high-performance and sustainable master's program in economics and development in the field of development planning and regional finance at the national and international levels based on the noble values of national culture.
The Master of Economic and Development Studies, Faculty of Economic and Business, Universitas 11 Maret, is accredited A at the national level. Our education is a multidisciplinary subject on economics. It focuses on the issue of politics and socio-economics and the special area of international and local development.
The Master Program in Economics and Development has a curriculum developed based on a strong theoretical basis and adequate analysis in the field of economics and development. Students are encouraged to create high-quality and beneficial research for the development of knowledge that can be published in accredited national journals and reputable international journals, and to have a real contribution to the community based on scientific ethics. The teaching and learning process is conducted through a teacher learning center and student learning center. The face-to-face meetings using TLC method consist of unidirectional delivery of material by lecturers both directly and online. In an effort to create representative learning, the Master's Program in Economics and Development, MEB, provides supporting rooms such as classrooms, discussion rooms, teleconference rooms, computer laboratory, and a hall with internet access in all campus areas and access to online academic journals and international research databases. The Master Program in Economics and Development, MEB, has professional academic staff who graduated from domestic and overseas universities. The academic staff also serve in a professional capacity at public and private firms. More than 70% of academic staff have successfully been selected to receive research grants from the Ministry of Higher Education and Research and the university in the last 4 years. For the success of the education program, the Master Program in Economics and Development has developed collaborations with institutions, companies, national and international organizations, which are continuously carried out and improved. The Master Program in Economics and Development, MEB, provides room for students to develop their skills through several supporting activities such as field study, visiting lectures, survey research, thesis writing workshop, and summer school. The alumni of the Master Program in Economics and Development mostly work in the public sector, and some become private employees. The Master Program in Economics and Development is ready to shape graduates that are prepared to compete, have broad coverage, and are adaptable to economic digitization.
Aduh, macet nih, udah ada Buza. Udah. Udah masuk. Anti video.
Business. The Master of Management for the Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas 11 Maret, has established its vision to be a leading school of economics and business at the national level and recognized at the international level. MEB UNS currently has 7 degree programs consisting of 3 bachelor undergraduate programs, 3 master programs, and 1 doctoral program. All programs have been accredited A, Excellent, by the National Accreditation Board.
Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas 11 Maret has established its vision to be a leading school of economic and business in Indonesia and internationally recognized by delivering high quality teaching, excellence, and community empowerment.
FEB-UNS is a member of the AACSB, Association to Advance Collegiate School of Business. The Master of Management program of FEB-UNS has been accredited by ABES 21, the Alliance for Business Education and Scholarship for Tomorrow, since 2016, while the undergraduate program in management and the undergraduate program in development economics have been certified by the ASEAN University Network Quality Assurance since 2018 and 2019, respectively.
Sekarang sini.
Assalamualaikum, selamat pagi, good morning, Prof. Tamat, Puan Dr. Norlin, selamat pagi, Prof. Isa Mahfuha, selamat pagi, terima kasih atas kehadirannya, Pak Malik, selamat pagi, dan Bapak Ibu.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam, Prof. Sehat-sehat, Prof.
Sehat, alhamdulillah. Gimana kabarnya, Prof. Tamat?
Alhamdulillah sehat, alhamdulillah. Syukur.
Sudah bisa berkunjung menengok putra belum ini, Prof?
Belum.
Belum ya, tapi sehat ya.
Alhamdulillah. Hari itu Pak Malik ke sana tengok putranya.
Iya.
Ya.
Alhamdulillah sehat semua. Prof. Iza ini juga sehat selalu nih.
Sehat insya Allah.
Nih tahniah Prof. Sudah Dapat berita juga.
Sudah profesor bisa.
Ya, betul.
Selamat.
Syukran,
Tahniah.
Prof.
Guru besar.
Syukran.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Baik, kita mulai saja ya. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sehat dan sejahtera untuk kita semua. Yang terhormat, Associate Profesor Tamat Sarmidi PhD dari Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia, Wakil Dekan Bidang Akademik Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta, Profesor Dr. Iza Mafruha, SPMSI, Ketua Program Studi Magister Ekonomi dan Studi Pembangunan Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta, Dr. Evi Grafitiani, SEMSI, Bapak Malik Cahyadin, selaku dosen Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta, dan para peserta webinar yang berbahagia. Selamat datang dalam acara Economic Analysis and Academic Writing. Webinar ini diselenggarakan
Mbak Cindy, mohon maaf ke termute itu mic-nya. Ya.
Alhamdulillah, puji syukur kita panjatkan karena berkat rahmat Tuhan Yang Maha Esa, kita dapat berkumpul dalam kegiatan pada hari ini. Sebelum acara hari ini dimulai, kita buka acara ini dengan ucapan basmalah secara bersama-sama. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bapak Ibu yang saya banggakan, perkenalkan nama saya Cindy dan saya akan memandu acara pada hari ini. Berikut kami sampaikan susunan acara hari ini, diawali dengan pembukaan, dilanjutkan sambutan, penyampaian materi, diskusi, dan diakhiri dengan penutup. Untuk sesi tanya-jawab akan diberikan kesempatan setelah pemaparan narasumber pada sesi diskusi melalui kolom chat dan menu raise hand. Baik, langsung saja acara yang pertama yaitu mendengarkan lagu kebangsaan Indonesia Raya. Agenda selanjutnya, sambutan sekaligus pembukaan oleh Dekan Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis yang diwakili oleh Wakil Dekan Bidang Akademik Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta. Kepada Profesor Dr. Iza Mafruha, SEMSI, dipersilakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Yang saya hormati Prof. Tamat Sarmidi, ini luar biasa ini. Kolega kita yang sangat hebat, yang selalu bisa bersedia mendampingi ke UNS ya, untuk memberikan ilmu-ilmu yang bermanfaat bagi mahasiswa kami. Yang kami hormati Ibu Evi Grafitiani, ini Kaprodi MESP, beliau juga sangat luar biasa gitu ya, karena memang kerjasamanya baik di dalam maupun di luar negeri itu sangat banyak gitu ya. Kemudian adik-adik mahasiswa dan teman-teman dosen, ini alhamdulillah ada Mas Malik. Mas Malik ini posisi di Solo atau ada di Kuala Lumpur ya ini Mas Malik ya. Kemudian ada Mas Tetuko, kemudian ada beberapa dosen yang lain dan para mahasiswa MESP maupun PDIE yang hari ini alhamdulillah bisa hadir di dalam acara kita, yaitu pelatihan untuk economic analysis dan academic writing. Puji syukur alhamdulillah kita bisa bertemu, dan sebelumnya saya mengucapkan taqabbalallahu minna wa minkum minal aidin wal faizin. Ini masih momen Syawal, momen Lebaran gitu ya, kita masih bisa saling bermaaf-maafan, sehingga insya Allah apabila di dalam setahun ini kita komunikasi, kita bersilaturahmi, itu ada kesalahan, ada kekurangan, kekhilafan, kami mohon maaf gitu ya, dan kita semua bisa memulai dari awal lagi apa yang akan kita lakukan di dalam berhubungan bersilaturahmi ini. Dan juga semoga Allah menerima amal ibadah kita selama bulan Ramadan dan kedepannya nanti. Kemudian sebelumnya kami mohonkan maaf, hari ini kebetulan Pak Dekan tidak bisa ikut bergabung dengan kita, sebenarnya sangat ingin bergabung dengan kita, tetapi ada acara beberapa ujian gitu ya, sehingga mewakilkan kepada saya untuk bertemu dengan Bapak Ibu dan adik-adik sekalian. Ini sebuah langkah yang luar biasa, dan saya juga apresiasi kepada Bu Evi selaku Kaprodi yang secara rutin itu men-charge kita gitu ya, memberikan tambahan ilmu kepada kita, karena yang namanya alat analisis, kemudian model dan metode analisis itu selalu berkembang dari waktu ke waktu gitu ya, baik analisis yang sifatnya kuantitatif maupun analisis yang sifatnya kualitatif. Dan hari ini serta besok ya, 2 hari ini alhamdulillah teman-teman akan mendapatkan tambahan ilmu yang luar biasa dari Prof. Tamat gitu ya. Yang pertama adalah kita akan bicara mengenai materi prinsipal komponen analisis. Nah, nanti monggo seperti apa materinya, kemudian mungkin nanti alat analisisnya seperti apa, toolsnya, seandainya toolsnya itu memang harus kita siapkan berbeli. Nah, di sini ada Mas Tetuko. Mas Tetuko itu adalah Ketua Lab Data dan Analisis. Nanti Mas Tetuko bisa melengkapi gitu ya, apabila ada tools yang kita belum punya dan harus berbayar. Kemudian yang berikutnya adalah materi propensity score matching, kemudian materi quantile regression gitu ya. Kemudian besok di hari berikutnya kita akan bicara mengenai modeling gitu ya, dan academic writing serta publication. Karena memang begini Prof. Tamat dan Bapak Ibu serta adik-adik sekalian, salah satu kendala yang selama ini selalu ada ketika seorang mahasiswa itu akan lulus dari program S2 maupun S3 itu adalah di dalam penulisan artikel yang kemudian bisa diterima dan publish pada jurnal-jurnal yang bereputasi, baik itu pada level internasional maupun nasional. Sebenarnya kalau untuk S2 gitu ya, master itu kita syaratnya tidak harus yang Scopus gitu ya, tetapi bisa pada jurnal nasional yang terakreditasi dan juga jurnal internasional gitu, yang walaupun belum masuk ke dalam Scopus, tetapi memang kadang-kadang mahasiswa gitu karena terlalu fokus di dalam penulisan tesis, sering lupa bahwa ada masa ketika penulisan artikel itu tidak bisa begitu jadi langsung bisa diterima gitu. Mungkin ada beberapa review, mungkin reviewnya baik bersifat minor maupun mayor harus ditolak dan sebagainya. Untuk itu nanti setelah acara ini saya mohonkan kepada Bu Evi untuk ada semacam semacam tesis camp gitu. Jadi mahasiswa sudah siap dengan draft artikelnya, kemudian pembimbingnya itu bisa memberikan masukan secara intens, sehingga nanti di semester 3 itu paling tidak draft artikel itu berdasarkan proposal dan data awal itu sudah bisa disusun, sehingga nanti di semester 4 awal itu mahasiswa selain dia mempersiapkan untuk hasil kelayakan dan ujian dari disertasinya, dia sudah bisa submit pada jurnal-jurnal yang dituju. Karena kalau menunggu selesai penuh ujian, kita akan makan waktu, karena salah satu syarat ujian itu harus sudah ada artikel yang minimal sudah acceptance gitu ya, sudah accepted, sudah diterima pada jurnal yang bereputasi. Nah, ini nanti mohon juga motivasinya Prof. Tamat gitu ya untuk mahasiswa kita gitu untuk menulis, karena kadang-kadang suka membaca, tetapi kadang-kadang ketika sudah membaca banyak mau menstrukturisasikan dalam bentuk tulisan itu sering juga ada kesulitan gitu, sehingga mohon bantuannya, mohon dukungannya agar adik-adik ini nanti bisa menulis dengan bagus dan bisa diterima pada jurnal yang bereputasi gitu. Syukur-syukur kalau bisa paling tidak Q3 atau mungkin Q2, karena itu tentu saja menjadi prestasi bukan hanya bagi si mahasiswa tetapi juga bagi prodi dan fakultas. Mungkin itu Bapak Ibu sekalian dan adik-adik yang saya sayangi gitu ya. Saya mohon maaf tidak bisa ikut bergabung sampai selesainya, tapi ini tadi sudah saya tanyakan ke Bu Evi, ada rekamannya sehingga nanti bisa meminta rekaman untuk didengarkan ulang gitu ya, untuk saya lihat ulang. Karena hari ini kebetulan ada rapat pleno Senat Akademik yang harus saya ikuti. Mungkin itu saja yang bisa saya sampaikan. Sekali lagi terima kasih yang luar biasa kepada Prof. Tamat dan juga besok Bu Dr. Nurlin ya, Bu Evi ya, yang akan memberikan pencerahan untuk adik-adik kita khususnya mahasiswa dari prodi MESP. Dan dengan mengucap Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, acara pada hari ini yaitu webinar dan pelatihan Economic Analysis and Academic Writing saya nyatakan dibuka. Wabillahi taufik wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Baik, terima kasih Profesor Dr. Isa Mafruha. Agenda selanjutnya adalah sesi foto bersama. Kepada Bapak Ibu peserta dipersilakan mengaktifkan kamera. Baik, dalam hitungan 3, 1, 2, 3. Baik, terima kasih. Acara selanjutnya adalah acara inti, yaitu pemaparan materi oleh Profesor Tamat Sarmidi dengan tema Method in Economic Analysis. Dan sesi ini akan dipandu oleh Saudari Nuri Resti Cahyani yang merupakan alumni mahasiswa Magister Ekonomi dan Studi Pembangunan Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta. Kepada Saudari Nuri Resti Cahyani dipersilahkan.
Ya. Terima kasih, Mbak Cindy. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Honorable Professor Dr. Iza Mafruhah, SAMSI, as Vice Dean 1 Academic Field, Faculty of Economic and Business, Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta. Dr. Evi Gravitiani, SAMSI, as Head of Master's Program of Economics and Development Studies, Faculty of Economic and Business, Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta. Associate Professor Tamat Sarmidi, PhD, as our special guest lecturer today from University Kebangsaan Malaysia. And all of my beloved participants. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. I would like to thank Allah that has given us everything. So this time we can be here and do our activity. Salawat and greetings, let us glorify our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which we hope for his help on the last day. Amin. I also want to thank the committee and all of you for this great opportunity. All of the participants, let me introduce myself. My name is Nuri Resti Chayani. I'm here as your moderator today. Our topic on the webinar is method in economic analysis. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce our special speaker today. He is Associate Professor Tamat Sarmidi, PhD from University Kebangsaan Malaysia. He is expertise in applied macroeconomics, international finance, and applied econometrics field. In administrative position, he is Deputy Dean, Research and Innovation, Faculty of Economic and Management, UKM. Prof. Tamat was PhD alumni at University of Leicester, United Kingdom in 2008. His title of current research is The Aviation Industry and its Impact on the Asian Economy. His last publication is in the Journal of Chinese International Law, indexed on the Web of Science, Q1. Before we go to the presentation, I will explain how to ask the question. To all participants, you can write down your question in the chat room, or you can turn the mic and video on. Okay, the attendance link will be shared at the end of the presentation session. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, to shorten the time, please welcome Professor Tamat Sarmidi. Professor, time is yours.
Thank you very much, Mbak Nuri Resti Chayani, for very warm welcome. And thank you for my colleague, Dr. Evie, who constantly inviting me. Even though during this time, very hard time, I know that for students, for lecturers, we stay in our room for numbers of hours and then just facing a flat screen, and then we talk like mad people. So I think this is a very good, what do you call it, a very good actions move by the university, especially under the program of this MESP, because even though under this pandemic where we cannot meet in physical, but we conduct this webinar, and then it is very interactive. Those who not sure and not clear of the explanations, you may write, and then if not today, maybe in future also, if you have any questions, you may, what do you call it, I may share with you. Like, I think I have a few alumni from FEB, like maybe Mbak, what do you call it, Winnie, who I think even though when the sessions end, she likes contacting me, and we discuss on certain issues, especially on the econometrics and methods. And then she managed to publish a few articles, I think. And before that, if I'm not mistaken, there is one student from FEB also, Sekar Tunjung, yes, if some of you remember, meaning that I have been quite long time with FEB, UNS. Yes. So with that, I think today we're going to discuss about very important issue that is especially on the project evaluations. We want to measure whether the policy or projects that be implemented is effective or not. First, we're going to discuss on principal component analysis, and then on propensity score matching, and then on non-linearity, because on the first and second techniques, we discuss on the linear coefficients parameter that we estimate, but not all the parameter may constant throughout the analysis, and then we move on towards on the quantile regressions. The time have been given very short, meaning that's only for 3 hours approximately, but it does not diminish or does not defeat the purpose. Maybe I'm going to introduce you on the importance of these 3 techniques, and then I introduce to you how it operates, how to run it using some statistical techniques, packages, especially using Stata, and then how to interpret the results, okay, because it's very important. Once we understand to run the program, then we able to interpret the results. So hopefully, is it my voice clear or not? Ibu Mbak Nuri, is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, it's clear because we are quite distant. I'm afraid that you may not clearly listen to my voice. Okay, I'm going to share with you. So first on principal component analysis, and then on propensity score matchings. And between of these two, I think we're going to have a short break, like 5 minutes, and then we continue to quantile regressions. And each of the sessions, we're going to break for a while, and then we continue. And then due to time constraint, I think if any one of you got a pertinent and pressing issue, you may interject me, meaning that you can just raise up your hand if it is a very pertinent. Otherwise, you can drop your questions in the chat box. If it is very pertinent, then please, with the permissions of the chairpersons, okay, then we may discuss your issues or your concern on the topic. Okay. Is it okay? Can see, Mbak Nuri?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can see the presentation, Prof.
Okay, good. Yes. Okay. The topic is principal component analysis. Under this, hopefully after attending the course, okay, you may understand what is principal component, what it is. Mbak Nuri, if at times we call it due, meaning that you just notify me, because I'm using full screen. I don't have a watch, so I cannot see the time from my screen. Okay, so hopefully you may remind me. Okay, thank you very much. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to discuss about eigenvalue, the statistics parameter that we're going to understand. Even though we may discuss a little bit on commonality because of this is on the factor analysis, but we are not discussing on the factor analysis. We are on the principal components. We are more concentrate on eigenvalue. And then factor loadings on the weight of each of the factors. And then the weight measures by factor scores. And then rotations, that possibility of the closest match or the closest proxy, the closest score, if we try to play around with some of the variable. And then uniqueness, this one is just another terms that being used in the factor analysis, but it's really because factor analysis and principal components can be used interchangeably, okay, especially in the analysis. Only factor analysis, that there is another development of it, which we use a dynamic factor analysis on the multivariate basis. But it is a very interesting area, but we are not going to discuss it today. And then how to determine the suitable exploratory factor analysis that is on the principal component part. And then we run Stata for a while, and then we interpret, okay, the Stata's results under the principal component analysis. And then we want to test whether the analysis is reliable or not. Okay, that's going to end of our discussions. So on this is okay. In short, a principal component analysis. We understand that there are hundreds or maybe if not maybe more than tens of variable that's affecting certain we call it items or certain event. For example, we are having interest rate. There are many things affecting interest rate, prices. There are many things that's affecting prices. But how to manage, how to understand those factors, okay, that we call that a structure. We want to understand the structure of the variable that we try to understand. So principal component analysis is basically a method for identifying structure within a set of variables. How it behaves, what are the factors affecting it? Maybe there are tens, like 20, 30 factors, but we want to simplify it by understanding the structure and the factors that is what do you call it, affecting those variable. Okay. For example, on the financial development issues, there are many dimensions. For example, financial markets, the consumer sides, regulatory framework, and under of each these sectors of each dimensions, maybe there are another 10 or 20 factors. Financial market, what are the indicators of financial markets? On the banking sector, okay, on the financial, on the stock markets, there are many things. So how to structure on the financial development, we need a very systematic way. So that's why we need of this technique. That is, we call it as principal component analysis. Okay, and then once we got the factors, how to visualize? We're going to use a scree plot, and then how to make a decisions? We're going to use Kaiser rules, okay, on the eigenvalue and exceeding unity, and then we're going to depend on these two things to decide on the factors or the components that's affecting the variable that's we interested in. Okay, so in PCA, we can determine whether a single factor represent the three development items that I mentioned to you just now on the financial development. So in practical, PCA is applied to understand much larger sets of variables, tens or even hundreds, when just reading the variable descriptions does not determine an obvious or immediate number of factors. So the PCA going to explain the patterns of correlations within a set of observed variable by identifying sets of highly correlated variable and infer an underlying factor. Okay. So with that, okay, I think the definitions, the introduction of it. So we're going to use as well exploratory factor analysis in this case. What does exploratory factor analysis is that we can we do some try and error, okay, which the factors, the component that we want to study does not depend on certain theory, okay. It does not rely on previous idea on the factor structure we may find. For example, in case of financial development, we understand that there are some theory on financial development, okay, and then there are some explanations of it. But we try to get out of the box. We don't want to be confined to those theory. We just want to explore. That's why we call it exploratory factor analysis. Okay, we want to explore further. Okay, we just put any variable that we think that it might be explaining of the financial development. For example, just we want to know that we call it the temperature of the country, for example, whether it's a moderate temperature or it's very humid, very hot, then relate it to financial development. Maybe that there are some association, some correlation with it. Okay, for example, we notice that most of the countries that have financial development is from moderate country, not from the high temperature country, for example. Okay, so that there is no theory explaining it, but we may do some analysis on it. Or confirmatory factor analysis, that is, we understand the theory, okay, we base on certain theory, and then we want to confirm those factors. It is also possible using this factor analysis. Meaning that, for example, on the financial development, okay, it's based on certain factors, for example, on institutions development, to determine the financial development. Or financial inclusions, for example, that is on the financial inclusions, it depends on educations of the community, or that has been theory on it. Okay, so we want to confirm that theory, so we can use this confirmatory factor component analysis as a confirmatory factor analysis. So the application is quite wide. Okay, many areas can be what do you call it, employ. Okay, we can utilize this factor principal component analysis for where the theory is being developed and the theory is not developed yet. So can both. Unlike to certain regression analysis, we need to be very sure on the dependent and independent variable. It based on certain theory. For example, theory of development, Cobb-Douglas, production functions, or certain constants, economic scale, so CES, and so on. So we need to be very sure on the theoretical part. Then we can move on with certain analysis, econometric analysis. But in this case, on the principal component analysis, we may sure or not sure on the theoretical background, but we just want to explore on what are factors. We can put thousands or hundreds or tens of the variable, and then we sort out, we filter, and then we come up with certain, how many components, and then we can categorize those components that have high correlations, and then we can come up with certain theory, okay, to deduce from the variable that we get to form a certain theory, or to form certain understandings on the variable that's affecting us. So why do we need it? Okay, because there are a lot of, we call it misunderstanding, okay, in understanding a certain behavior. So we need to identify those factors, okay. So tackling such a large set of items is problematic because it provides a quite complex data. So given that identifying and evaluating performance features that relate to financial development, I just take one case that is financial development, which close to my area. We cannot simply compare the items on a pairwise basis. We cannot compare those things, okay? Because we don't understand the relationships so far. Okay, for example, it is far more reasonable to consider the factor structure first. Okay, first we identify the structure. For example, on financial market development, there might be few measures such as number of ATM, automatic teller machines, okay? Automated teller machines per 10,000 populations. This is one of the indicators. Number of banking branches, banking agents, strategic locations. There are hundreds of it, which we need to understand of those factors. Okay, we understand that if we include those three variables in the econometric analysis, what happened? it is the explanatory variable, and then there are highly correlated. Definitely there might be some multicollinearity. Okay, a problem arises from the analysis because we have many variables that are highly correlated. So how to solve that? We need to come up with some index. That's one of the index. But how sure about the index? How good those index? Then this principal component analysis can help you. Okay? Because if ratio of, for example, ATM per 10,000 populations high, it will be most likely all three items. That is number of branches, agents, okay, going to be high as well. Okay. Conversely, if the ratio of ATM is low, then the three ratio also become very low because they are highly correlated. So PCA is a statistical procedure that draw an item correlations in order to find a small number of factors. So we having conducted the analysis, we can make use of a few if those factors, okay, they are correlated instead of many variables. Or if uncorrelated, then we also can, meaning that we drop this variable, thus significantly reducing the analysis complexity. Because the data, if we have that many variable, we include in the analysis, okay, because based on our logic of understanding, it might create, we call it some complexity of the data. That is the noise that being fed up in the error terms. So this make our analysis inefficient, okay? And some may suffer from biasness as well. That's why we need to have a very efficient and unbiased estimator by reducing the number of those factors into certain few components that really significant to the variable. Okay, so for example, I can say that the financial development, we have many categories, okay, but I just reduce it into these three components. That is on the financial market, consumer sides, and regulatory framework. And each of the components, for example, under financial markets, there are maybe more than 10 variables that can be used to explain the financial markets. For example, banking, on the banking sectors, there is an ATM, number of branches, agent banking locations, and then financial entity, they can be on the how good the financials, what do you call it, institutions in the country, and then stock market, how efficient. There are many things that on the stock market, the prices and so on. So on the consumer side, for example, it does have easy to have an saving, a current account, checking accounts, business. There are so many things, okay, on the accessibility, how you access the account, whether using books, internet banking, e-wallet, and so on. So by having those, what do you call it, variable, and then you want to choose or want to select a few, then we need to use this financial, this principal component. I write it here, EFA and CFA, exploratory and confirmatory factor analysis, okay? That is just to confirm whether, for example, you read from your literature, it has got a very solid theory, and then you want to confirm. Also, you can use this principal component analysis. Or you don't have the theory, and then you can use this EFA that is on the exploratory factor analysis to decide what factor that's being affecting those variable. Okay, so what is the requirement and the steps of this PCA? Under multivariate analysis, PCA also subjects to certain requirement, okay, so that the analysis become meaningful. Otherwise, we may not get the desired results, okay, from the analysis. So one of the crucial requirement is that the variable needs to exhibit, to show certain degree of correlations. That's one of the, the main characteristics that we need. So for example, we have three components, okay, as I showed you just now in this graph, for example. Definitely X1, X2, and X3, okay, on the banking sector, they are highly correlated, but may not correlated with another, that X13, X14, and X15, okay? So X1 and X14 are probably somewhat correlated, but to a lesser degree, meaning that they are correlated in a way that, but going to be less correlated as compared to X1, X2, and X3, okay? Compare to X13, X14, and X15. So we can group it. So that's why we call it as a component. We want to group those variable into certain component. Okay, so how it works, PCA tries to reduce the overall item to a smaller set of factors. Okay, so in a very precise way, we can say that PCA extract factors such that they account for variable variance. They are using variance, okay, to determine the relationship between those variable. So in this case, there is a trade-off between simplicity and accuracy, okay, because if we want to have accuracy, we need to include as many as variable or items in the analysis, but it may cause complexity. But if you want to make it simple, you may choose only one item, okay, that's affecting the variable that you interested in. That is simple, only one, but it may not be accurate. So the trade-off between simplicity and accuracy, we need to optimize it so that we can have the best options for PCA. Okay, so this trade-off has been to be addressed in PCA when deciding how many factors to extract from the data. So these are the steps, okay, under the PCA. First, you have to check requirement and conduct under preliminary analysis, okay, on the correlations, okay, the logic behind that. And then you extract the factors, okay, once you got the items, and then you run, okay, and then you determine the number of factors using certain technique that I'm going to explain to you later. And then we're going to interpret the factor solutions under which category and so on. Evaluate goodness of fit, okay, how many percent that explain those factors that have been selected, explaining how many percent, okay, and then we may compute the factor score, okay, on the predictions. We can use it as an index and so on. It depends on how far or how deep your analysis is going to be. Okay, in this case, that we need to answer certain questions or concerns before we can say that our PCA is good. So, are the measurement scale appropriate? Okay, are the measurement scale appropriate? Does it ratio ordinal? Okay, it is a what are the types of the measurements that we are using? Okay, because it's very important. On the sampling size, does it large enough? Is it good? Okay, are the observations independent? Between observations, within observations, are they independent? And then are the variables sufficiently correlated? So these are few questions, okay, that we need to understand. Okay, we understand that commonalities is the variance of each variable, meaning that the variance of each variable. Okay, so I'm going to explain it later as well on this thing, but we need to understand on the size of sample based on the variance, okay? So answering how sample size, on the sample size, okay, does it enough or not? If the commonalities are above 0.6, okay, the commonalities, we're going to explain to you. Sample size below 100 are adequate, meaning that the variance, explain the variance is quite high, okay? So we can have a small sample. But if the commonality around only 50 or 0.5 or 50%, sample size need to be between 100 and 200, okay, to be sufficient. But if it is consistently low, under 50%, okay, of the variance, a sample size between 100 to 100 is adequate. So that is need to be more of the sample, okay? But when commonality are consistent low and factor number are high, or are measured only few indicators, less than 3 indicators, okay, 300 observations are recommended. So this is a rule of thumb, okay, on selecting the number of observations. So we have to ensure the observations are independent. The observations that we have for the first one and second one and third one and the same category, they are independent, cannot be correlated. Of the observations, okay, these are the observations, not on the items or the components, it's on the observations. Okay, so mean that the observations cannot be correlated, okay. And then these are the variable. On the variable, need to be highly correlated, okay. On the variable, need to be highly correlated. I just go quickly on these things. Okay, later we're going to using this KMO, Kaiser, Meyer, and Olkin statistics to decide whether it is good, our PCA are good or not. Okay, so we're going to use this KMO, okay, on the sampling adequacy, whether our sampling is good enough or not. If it is 0.9 and higher, okay, on the KMO statistics, meaning that it's marvelous, okay, it's good. On the variable that we collect, then it is a very, very good, excellence, we can say that. Is the statistic is 0.8 to 0.89, it is still very, very good, we can say that very good, meritorious. 0.7 to 0.79 is middling, meaning that's so-so. Okay, 0.6 to 0.69 mediocre, and then if below 0.5, okay, miserable, meaning that's can be as but is not good. But if below 0.5 is unacceptable. So these are the range that we're going to take. If, for example, we take a certain items, okay, for example, 20 items, and then we run PCA. At the end of it, we got certain component. Okay, suppose that, for example, 2 or 3 components, we can have a 3 or 4 components, and then we run KMO. And then the KMO statistic shows it is 0.49. So meaning that the components that we choose, even though we have 2 components or 3 components, but that one is not a good measures. Maybe we can increase the number of observations. Okay, the sampling numbers, we need to increase it to quite higher numbers, so that because it unable to create some associations or correlations between variables. Okay, that's also might be a reason. Or maybe the data collections got some failure or some defaults in certain areas. For example, that's why it might not be related at all. So for some reasons, okay. Or maybe if we read further, theoretically, those observation, the variables that we choose may not at all related to the factors that we want to study. So it's very important, what do you call it? Very important statistics in deciding whether the PCA is good or not. So how it works? Okay, the objective is to produce data structure with only few factors. But this is a linear composite. Okay, so the linear composite, call it as a principal components. Okay, in PCA we compute the eigenvectors. Okay, these eigenvectors include so-called factor weight that is associated with the variance, which extract the maximum possible variance, okay, of all the variables. We match it, the variance going to be the maximum possible variance that we explain by variance mean the variations, okay, the variations of those variable. So in practice, first the factors being extracted, okay, based on certain eigen vectors, then we're going to come up with those variable. Okay, for example, how it works, okay, in certain point, I show you this one. Okay, for example, there are factors, items, okay, that we got. For example, there are 5 items that we consider from our logics, and then we want to extract that into 2 components only, 2 dimensions. Instead of having 5, we're going to have only 2, that is F1 and F2. That we can say that the component 1, component 2, or factor 1 or factor 2. And then we can group, because we don't know how to group it, but we may able to group it. There is the variable, the items X1, X2, and X3, X4, and X5. So X5 and X4 maybe can be on the F2. Okay, and then X3, X2, and X1 on F1. So we want to minimize, okay, we want to minimize. On these rotations, we try to minimize the variance, okay? So some sort of the closest gap to F1, X3, X2, and X1. Which one is the closest? Of F2 is the closest to X4 and X5. So the closest, and then we can drop the others. But we are not dropping. The dropping process is because of us. We are the one who decide. They just give some statistical indicators, okay, the eigenvalue, so that we decide on our part. Okay. So basically, the eigenvalue indicate how much variance of the total variance this factor account for. The eigenvalue tell us how much variance each factor is account for that. Another statistic that we're going to use in other analysis, okay, is on the commonality. That is indicate how much variance for each variable. So remember, they are talking about variance, but eigenvalue is on the overall variance, while the commonality is on each variance. Okay, so the uniqueness is another terms to explain on the commonality. So if the commonality is high, okay, so uniqueness is low. So 1 minus commonality. So thus the uniqueness value should be below 0.5 to have, we need that unique. That component is very unique, okay, being explained by certain items. So need to be less than 0.5 or high commonality, meaning that's very common. Those items and the factors that we have. Okay, that's on the individual variable. But on the overall, that is on the factor analysis, that is we are using eigenvalue. So commonality and uniqueness is a factor analysis on each variable, while on the overall thing is eigenvalue is the principal components. So these are the difference between factor analysis and the principals component. Okay, So every additional factors, okay, can add up, okay, explaining the variance, adding up, okay. So that's going to explain further on each of the variable. So because when we add up, okay, so there is some additional factors on explaining to be the uniqueness of those variable. So meaning that it can explain better and better, okay, for that. Okay, for example, like this, just an graphical, just to make you understand better. Okay, the total variance is using that's 5 items, is 5. And then if we disaggregate, okay, to certain items, how many variants they explain, that is on the commonality, okay, on the commonality, the total variance, okay. So if we want to select on certain components, for example, out of 5, we just move on to end up with 2 components. So these 2 components based on certain variable that we choose, okay, based on the commonality, on the uniqueness. If you show, if I went from the first graph, that is the closest gap from F1 and on the F1 axis and F2 axis. So it's which one the closest, then we understand that by choosing these 2 items, okay, it can explain around, for example, 68%. But even though it's only explained about 68%, but we reduce number of observations. Instead of 5, now become 2. So we reduce the noise of these the items that we have, okay, makes our analysis become we call it a bit easier to show the structure of those variable, okay. So this is the way how it works in the what do you call it, the PCA. Okay, how to decide? We can show some graphical display, okay, using the scree plot. But before that, we can use on the statistical part on the Kaiser rules, okay, KMO. That's rule of thumb. We're going to choose the eigenvalue, okay, the value which is greater than 1. Once we run PCA, okay, and then the eigenvalue is more than 1, then we're going to have that, okay, we choose that, it's like that. That is rule of thumb, but it depends on you, okay, how many factors that's, or how many component that you want to choose, okay. Because each factor with an eigenvalue greater than 1 account for more variance than a single variable. It means that if you compare to single variable, it has more than that, meaning that we're looking at standardized variable, which is why each variable variant is exactly into 1. But now those eigenvalue is more than 1. So it is a very, meaning that's a reasonably good variable, okay, being explained by the component that we're going to choose. Okay, the graphical display of this Kaiser's rule, okay, we call it the scree plot, okay, is to plot each factor's eigenvalue on y-axis again the factor which it is associated, that is on the x-axis. It's generally recommended that all factors should be retained above this break elbow, okay, that is on the certain like what you get, like a band, okay, a king of the graph, okay, above of it, as they contribute most to the explanations of the variance in the data sets. Another analysis is parallel analysis. Rational underlying parallel is factor that from real data with a valid underlying factor structure should have a larger eigenvalue and those derived from randomly generated data. So it is another techniques, but we are not using real data. So then we are using like pseudo, okay, a random variable, but we are not using in this case. I think is good enough if we understand cases rule and script plot analysis. That is good enough. Okay, for example, I'm going to provide you, I think this later on I share with you on this. For example, data of auto price and its affecting factors for US. Okay, there are few variable. For example, what are the factors that affecting price of US automobile in US? Okay, there are few. For example, in this case, we have 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If you want to run a regression, definitely the error may suffer from certain, we'll call it multicolority and so on. So we want to reduce to certain factors only that can explain a price. Or for example, if you want to report it non-econometrics part, then you can report it. What are the we call it the main component or the main factors affecting price in US. For example, the mileage, okay, of the car, repair record in 1978, headroom in terms of inch, trunk space, okay, weight, length, turn circulations in feet, displacement, okay, a gear ratio. These are all very technical, but you want to find which factors out of these 9. So these are some descriptive of it. Okay, we can. I'm running this using Stata. These are the at top here is the command of the Stata, and then these are the output of this command. Okay, for example, the correlations, we notice that is quite high correlation, some negative, some positive, but most of it got very high, 0.8, 0.7, highly correlated. Okay. Okay, so how to run these principal components? Okay, there are 9 components, okay, because of 9 variables that we want to choose, okay, we have out of 9 items, okay, so they're going to create 9 components. All 9 components explain the full variations in the data, because we assume that these only 9 items that available. So the variations in the price in this within this 9 component, we notice that being explained by those variable is 100%. Okay, that should be okay. So we can see that the cumulative, okay, component 1 explaining the variation is 67. It is in percentage. These are the eigenvalue. Okay, the eigenvalue can be more than 1, but in terms of cumulative, on the factors that affecting is this first component is 67%, the explanations. Second is on up to 79%. The difference is 11%. Okay, the third one is 86%, and is only 7%, 4%, 3%, the cumulative. And this one even 0.3%. So the difference between those components, we can notice that it is the difference of eigenvalue. Okay, this the cumulative of it, that is 100. Okay, this one. They explain full variations. Okay, the first 2 components, component 1 and component 2, okay, explain about 79% of variations. The first 3 components, even though the value of the eigenvalue is less than 1, but suppose that if you want to choose up to third component, it explains 86% of the variations in this, what do you call it, items. So the command is PCA, and then we try put all those variables that we are interested in to form the component. Okay. Okay. That is when we run this one, the PCA or command, okay, the first output is on the eigenvalue, and then on the second output, second panel, is on the eigenvectors. That is how many percents been explained, okay, by this component, 9 component. And then we notice that on the unexplained variations of MPG, mileage, okay, is 0. Meaning that all the variations of the MPG is being explained by component 1, component 2, and component up to component 9. Okay, and we notice that for all variables, for all the items here, okay, displacement, gear ratio, turns, all being explained by component 1 up to component 9. But if you want to move further, okay, we always choose the component loading, they represent the correlations and its original value, which is we are concentrate on the value which above 0.3 or below minus 0.3. Okay, rule of thumb, we always choose the value, okay, the loading here, that is greater than 0.3. For example, in this case, 0.63. Yes, we choose this one. Not this one, okay, on component 6. No, component 8, component 9. We choose only component 2 and component 3. That's it. So representing on repair in 78, years of 78, we always choose component 3 and component 2. And then we're going to choose this as to represent it. Okay, this is how we transform those eigenvalue into script plot. We just type it in the stata command, script plot, okay, and then script plot y line 1, that is on y line, we put a red line 1, okay, saving, we put the name of this variable, this graph name, that is PCA car. PCA, this you can put any name, okay. That's why PCA car GPH graph have been saved. Replace is that to show that once you run it again next time, they're going to replace this existing file, meaning that they're going to save the latest. Otherwise, if you didn't put replace, then it's a conflicting. Okay. And then if you want to export for each of the graph, you can export. For example, in my case, because I want to save it, I can use this one, PCA car 1 in PDF. Okay, and I export it to D drive. Okay, where I put all my items, and then this is a bengkel of the workshops, for example, under PCA. So that's can be what do you call it? Can be save the command to save the graph. So this we can say that the elbow, okay, the elbow between component 2 and 3, we will use 2 components for the rest of the analysis, because we take the cutoff point is eigenvalue 1 equal to 1, meaning that's only first component and second component. The rest we can drop. Out of 9 variables, then we can choose only 2, okay, component to explain the variation within these 9 items, 9 variable. So it's very, very good. Okay, instead of having 9, now we have only 2. So in another analysis, for example, we can choose that we want to have minimum eigenvalue is 1. Okay, choose minimum eigenvalue of 1 for all variables that we choose. This is standard output for PCA, but now they only choose 2 components. That is component 1 and component 2. And then we want to know how many unexplained, how much unexplained variance if we choose only component 1 and component 2. We notice that unexplained, because if we take full component, the unexplained is 0. But now unexplained is about 27%, 34%, 30%. So we can say that it's quite good, okay, because unexplained, they explain more than like 60%. Okay, this 30%, this is only 69% not be explained, 34 is 65. This almost like 70% be explained. The rest is quite good. Okay, more than, this one is more than 90, more than 80%. This one more than 70% been explained by component 1 and component 2. Okay, and then we want to have this component, okay, of component 2 component 1 and component 2, and then explain. Okay, we show that on the graphical component loading. Okay, we can use the same command and then to show the component loading. It is just a graphical show, okay, but in fact it is the same as our what call it statistical display just now. So between first and second component, okay, first component and second component, we can see that this, for example, repair 78 is quite high. Repair 78 with using different techniques, okay, using different technique, Promax and the orthogonal variance rotations. We try to rotate which one is the closest. Even though we use different techniques, the result is almost the same. Okay, the result is almost the same. This is just rotation techniques. That is repair, meaning that's how if you have a major repair or certain repair of your car, that's going to affect your pricings. And then, for example, we notice that the headroom trunk also got a high component, and then the correlation between component 1 and component 2 also high. Okay, so these are the display. You can show this one if you're interested in. Okay, and then, for example, we want to show that of this component 1 and component 2 explain more than 65% of the variable based on the unexplained part. And then if, for example, you want to drop the value that is below 0.3 or and minus 0.3, okay? So we drop that. So we notice that only these are the factors. MPG, okay, for example, for component 2 is repair 78, headroom and trunk. So we notice that we drop other items which not important. So another things, how to name this component, we always choose the highest loading. For example, component 2, how to name this component 2? Okay, the highest is repair, 1978. And then component 1, which one is the highest? We can say that it is 3.89, okay, weight of the car. Okay, this component 1, name of it. We can base on the highest component. So how to make a predictions, meaning that we want to we can say that like an index, okay? Using this component 1 and component 2, we want to transform into certain, for example, PC1, PC2. If we want to regress using PC1, PC2, we can use it, okay? That we call it the scoring coefficients are used to predict the value of the 2 principal components for every observational data. For example, like this, okay, using this command, that is predict PC1, PC2 score, okay? Now, in terms of the data, okay, we got this gear ratio and end of the data just now, okay? After that, you predict PC1, PC2. Instead of using the 9 variable that we have, we can use this PC1 and PC2 to replace or to represent that 9 variable that is using this principles component. Any other techniques? Okay, we can use other technique as well to create this, how to make the index using multi-dimensional index, which I'm going to show some of the example at the end of it. And these are the KMO, Kaiser, Meyer, Olin statistics. We notice that when we use this overall, 0.89, which is, we can say that meritorious. Some of it marvelous. Okay, MPG, the component, okay, being represented is very good. Basically, is very good. Some of the research, if you try, the value may less than 0.5, okay, which is unacceptable or miserable. But at least you need to have a middling, 0.7. That is most, accepted in journal article. At least you got a middling. Okay, medical can be accepted, but not that good. But if you have meritorious and marvelous, then even better. Okay, these are the components, core component, PCA, as shown to you just now, but now using more variable of the different car, then also possible. Okay, using this, I got one paper, economic research. This is a Q under WOS is Q2 paper now. Last time was Q1. In using this financial inclusiveness, which Prof. Iza expertise on financial inclusiveness and economic growth, new evidence using a threshold regression analysis. But our contribution is that we create another index of financial inclusions using principal component analysis. Okay, so this is just a motivations for some of you. We are using principal component analysis. This the present study contribute to new measurements of financial inclusion index, which is the combinations of parametric and non-parametric method in determine the weight of the indicators endogenously through principal component analysis. If this face-to-face workshops and we have ample of time, then I'm going to show you how to run this. I got this, the Excel file and then the loading and so on. But since time very limited, I just show you some of the findings. So we create the index, IFI index, computed using PCA out of 7 indicators. Okay, we have 4 dimensions, and then we come up with this, and then we use loading factors. So these are the few things. Let me share with you some things. Just want to show, for example, in Stata, just to show you in Stata. This I'm using Stata 16. Some of you may got 17. Some of you go 15. Doesn't matter. Okay, under this Stata, I will provide you with this do file, okay, on the PCA. This is on the PCA. You change some of the variable, okay. Now I'm using like agriculture, mining, construction, okay. So you just write it, and then once you click running, you can see that it's running. How to script plot. I'm not sure whether you can see or not the script plot now. Nuri, you can see it or not?
Yeah, I can see the scatter plot, Prof.
Okay, so these are the loading factors and the components. We are saving the script plot. Okay, these are the score variables. I give you this to Pak Malik, so you can exercise this on your own, okay? After this, I give to Pak Malik. Pak Malik, okay, Pak Malik, give you this.
Okay, Prof. Thank you.
Okay. So some of you may change the variable and so on, okay? You may get some of it, okay? Thank you very much. If any questions, please.
Is there any question from the participants? Okay. We have question from Mr. Malik in the chat room.
Okay.
I will read this, Prof.
Yeah, please.
Dear Prof. Tamat, can PCA be applied for all economic issues for proposing new index? Economic issue cover macro and micro levels.
The answer is definitely yes, Pak Malik. As I show you the example, which we publish in a very good journal, that's we are using the techniques, okay, that techniques, and then we'll call it out of, for example, like we have, for example, like 20 or 30 or less than that also, okay. Variables, we can say that's like potential variables affecting the certain things, okay. And then we create a PCA, run PCA, having the factor loadings, and then using that items that's above 1 in terms of eigenvalue, and then we can create those as an index using that predict PC1, PC2. If you want to have only PC1, PC1. But at the same time, we can use another techniques that is, we can use a multi-dimensional index, multi-dimensional factors. We are putting that component that we choose that have an eigenvalue more than 1, okay, using the loading, the factor loading, okay, then we create an index to have single index. Instead of, for example, we have, four eigenvalue which is more than 1. So meaning that we need to include four component in the analysis, which we think that is quite complex as well. But if we choose only one, for example, the first component, it's only explained, for example, only 48 or 40 or 50. But these four components maybe can explain like 70 or 80% of the variations. So you need to take account of these four components to make it high variations, explaining high variations in the variable. So if you take that four components, that may not solve the problem of complexity because you still have four components. So how to solve it? Okay, you transform these four components into single index. Okay, you transform it into single index, which we did in that paper. You can download the paper, okay, and then even though the explanation is not quite detailed, but I can explain to you how it works. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Tamat.
Yes.
Is there any question? Sorry, I say bilingual language. Jika ada yang ingin bertanya menggunakan bahasa Indonesia.
Ya, boleh, memang boleh. Dipersilakan guna bahasa Indonesia, boleh. Jangan risau. InsyaAllah saya faham. Kalau tak ada pun tak apa, jangan risau. Jangan tertekan.
Mungkin belum ada, Prof.
Ya, bisa. Okey, kalau tidak ada, mungkin kita boleh rehat sebentar. Saya settingkan, saya hantar yang ni ke Pak Malik. Okey, Pak Malik ya, lihat di apa tu di WhatsApp, saya sudah hantar do file dengan data untuk PCA ni. Ya, saya sudah hantar yang do file. Ya. Okey. Okay, if no questions, I think we can move on to another very interesting and very important topics. That is on, we'll call it propensity score matching. Yes. Are you ready now? Or you want to go to toilet, have some snack? Let me, which one? PCA. Okay. Mbak Nuri, you can see this?
Yeah, I can see the
Okay, okay. And my voice clear also, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, students, adik-adik semua, we move on to propensity score matching. It is very powerful techniques to evaluate we call it the effectiveness, okay, the effectiveness of certain policy or certain actions, certain move, ataupun kita bilang satu-satu tindakan yang dibuat oleh seperti pemerintah ataupun yang dibuat oleh universitas, contohnya macam universitas mengadakan bengkel-bengkel seperti ini yang mana sebelumnya tidak dibuat. Jadi boleh dilihat keberkesanannya, the effectiveness, okay, kesuksesan apa ni webinar ini seperti ini. Like last time we have workshops, and then we want to see the effectiveness of those workshops. Then we can choose this PSM, propensity score matching techniques. So basically, it is evaluation techniques. Okay, I'm going to discuss with you. Okay. On the introductions, definition, motivations, method, and example, and discuss with you on the causal effects. And then discuss briefly, okay, briefly. Maybe if face-to-face, we can have one day on PCA, one day on propensity score matchings, and one day on quantile regressions. But doesn't matter. It is a good introduction for you. Okay, and then steps in propensity score matchings methodology. And then introduce you another new techniques under PCA, under PSM, propensity score matching, that is different in different model. That if we have a panel, meaning that's a 2 time frame, before and after. Okay, if not, the propensity score matching is a comparison between those being treated or non-treated. As I mentioned to you, for example, the workshops, okay. Some of you attended workshops, some of the students, okay, because it's, I'm not sure whether compulsory or not. For example, some student attending English proficiency course, while some others may not attending English proficiency course. Okay, so how to evaluate the effectiveness of this English proficiency course. Then we compare with those who did not attend the English proficiency course. Okay, using this technique. Okay, but why we need to compare? We need this PSM, proficiency score matching. For example, we have 100 students. We have 100 students for what do you call it? This one is MESP. Okay, for MESP. MESP. Mbak Nuri, berapa jumlah mahasiswa MBSP? Sekitar berapa? Sekitar.
Kalau yang satu angkatan sekitar 20 orang.
Oh, 20 orang ya.
Kalau yang mahasiswa aktif mungkin ada sekitar 100.
100, ya. Sekitar 100. Contohnya, kita mau melihat jika kecekapan bertutur ataupun menulis dalam bahasa Inggeris kan contohnya. Maka kita lihat mereka yang menghadiri bengkel-bengkel or workshops on English proficiency, meaning that to improve your English, and those who did not attend the English proficiency workshops, okay, or course. But the problem is that if you compare those who attend with those who attend, some of those who did not attend, okay, understand this. Some of those who did not attend may someone who is good in English, already good in English. For example, their family, okay, and then he's a former school, is coming from English medium school. So no need for him or her to attend this English proficiency class. If we directly compare with the two, those who attend and those who not attend, definitely the answer may not accurate, because for those who attend, some of them is very eager to learn English. Their English is not good, but eager to improve their English. Okay. Some of them who attend because being required to attend. For example, the parents or the teacher ask him to attend, but he may not participate, may not actively involve in the program being discussed by the lecturer or the instructor. Another group which not attend, there are some who really already good in English. Some, okay, so they're not interested. So we want to compare, so we want to reduce the bias, because the selections, we now randomly selected those who attend, those who not attend. And then some of them, those who not attend, their English is already good. For example, you compare the score of the results. For example, end of semester, English results. So you compare those who attend, those who not attend. Maybe those who did not attend, they got very high marks in English. So you may end up saying that the course, English course, is not effective, because there is no statistical difference between those who attend and not attend. It is not because it's not effective, but sample selections bias. You are not matching those who really study because they want to study, okay, and then with those who did not good in English but did not study. You are comparing with someone who not study but they are good in English. So in a way, we want to say that we want to reduce the bias of comparing apples and oranges, because we want to compare apple and apple, okay, for this one. So it's not simply t-test. For example, you run regression, you put dummy, those who attend, those who attend, and then on the dependent is your score, the outcome, the score of English, and then attend, not attend. And then we can see that by attending, okay, we see the coefficients, and then we say that, oh, it's not significant. No, it's not simple like that. On the project evaluations or policy evaluations, we need to compare apple and apple. That's why we want to match the outcome, so that we want to know the explanatory variable that we choose is really matching. That's the concept. Did you understand or not? Meaning that's let's me open to some of you if you want to ask, because this concept is very important. Because I don't want when we talk about different and difference, you just randomly select and then you run different and difference, and then you do start. We call it infer certain information from the statistic that you get, and then you may come up saying that okay, it is effective, it is not effective. Okay, for example, like aviation industry, okay, by imposing certain tax, we can say that it is because of this, without segmenting the sample. Maybe some business people, they have to travel, whether there is a high cost or low cost, doesn't matter. Okay, he has to travel. Okay, compared to we call it wisata, compared to tourists, if the cost is high, they may change the destination. So we need to match this sample. So this propensity score matching works in this. Any questions, class, if you want to ask on this? It is very important concept before I move on, because without understanding this, you may confuse. Why don't we just compare? Why don't we just run different indifference? Why don't we just using two sample T statistics? Okay, as we learn in statistic class on the T statistics of two sample. Okay, those who attend and those who don't attend, compare the results of outcome of it. Okay, so because it suffer from the bias, sampling bias. Yes. No questions? Or you are not here? It's lunchtime already.
Not yet.
Not yet, eh? Okay. Is it okay, Nuri? Okay, understand?
Yes.
But you already graduated, okay? But you may use this technique for on real life, not writing your thesis or dissertations. Okay. I think this overview, if you can understand what I explained to you just now, in fact, has covers many slides here, because I just transformed that idea into slides. Okay, so of course this is structured, but the concept is the one that I explained to you just now. So PSM, propensity score matching, is a matching technique to eliminate selection bias in observational studies by balancing covariate between treated and control groups, as explained to you. Because otherwise, you take all the sample that you choose, randomly selected, between the treated and control group, without diving deeper, or you dig deep into the behavior of each variable, without doing that. So which can be misleading, because we are not comparing two random we call it groups. Okay, even though it's random with codes, meaning that they got some characteristic which not random. Unlike to the experimental design, like in lab, we controls only that variable, so we can discriminate other factors. Unlike in this social science context, you cannot, for example, you choose someone random, but you cannot choose other factors to discriminate. For example, need to be Muslim. You cannot choose that because it come along. For example, you cannot choose whether it's male or female. Definitely male and female got different behavior, but you can choose, meaning that you can choose in random, but when you choose one sample, you cannot choose or you cannot discriminate, it need to be male. It need to be. So the propensity score matching is to eliminate that possibilities, the differences possibilities. Okay, whether the races, for example, in Malaysia, we have Chinese, we have Indian and Malay. We want to reduce that bias by using this propensity score matching with using some techniques that I'm going to introduce to you after this. So so we can propose summary pre-treatment characteristic of each subject into a single index variable, that is the propensity score, that match to the pre-sample that we choose. Okay, it's been quite long time. Seminal work by Rosenbaum and Rubin in 1983. Now there are many development based on this PSM. Okay, among it is this synthetic control group techniques. Also, what do you call it? I got ideas from this one. Okay, propensity score matching on the other techniques. Okay, that's developed from this one. Okay, we try to direct comparison of non-random experiment is impossible because dissimilarity attributes, as I explained to you. Okay, that you choose male, female, may not be races and so on, background educations, that may not be, cannot be random. Okay, so PSM is a tool to enable a direct comparison for matching between treated and control group by reducing those biasness. So it improves apple-to-apple comparisons under non-randomized conditions. Okay, so we provide a way to summarize covariate information about treatment selection into scalar value. That is we call it the score matching. Okay, values. So, for example, policy evaluation seek to determine effectiveness of particular interventions, a government policy. Okay, we can use this. For example, government increase policy rate, okay, or interest rate. Then what happen, okay, to those who abide. For example, NTM, non-tariff measures. Some exporters comply. Some company comply to NTM. Some may not comply. So we want to see the outcome. Okay, then we use this. But definitely between these company firms, they are heterogeneous in nature. How can you compare to contract basis on certain contracts being affected by these NTMs compared to open markets on the we call it different market conditions. Okay, so we cannot compare that. So we try to reduce those things. So in we call it in laboratory, this thing can be controlled. Okay, because it's being controlled on certain things, and then it's only looking into the effective variables only. So that can be done, but not in the we call it this social sciences. Okay, which is very difficult. So policy rate targeting for different market orientations. If you compare countries, for example, you have 160 countries, okay, on certain policy rate introduced by a World Bank, for example. So does it same countries that have a socialist background, okay, compared to capitalist background? So definitely you have to eliminate this bias by having this matching, so that we match the countries, so that we can have approximately the same background countries. So the key concern is that of similarity. How can we find individuals who are similar on all observable characteristics in order to match treated and non-treated individual? Not necessarily individual, can be plant, firm, countries, and so on. With single measure, we can readily compute a measure of distance between a treated unit. Distance means the difference, okay? The treated unit and each candidate match, that we find the match between it. With multiple measures defining similarity, how are we to balance similarity along each of those dimensions? So if you want to choose your future husband or wife, you can use this technique. Okay, you to eliminate the dissimilarities. You want to compare whether you suitable for, whether she is suitable for you or not, then you can use this technique, PCA. I can tell you how. So in this case, the PSM allow this matching problem to be reduced to single dimensions. Okay, that is the propensity score. The score, the propensity score, is defined as the probability. How it works, meaning that they are using probability that a unit in the full sample receive the treatment. Okay, compare given a set of observed variable. If all information relevant to participant and outcome is observable to the researcher, the propensity score will produce valid match for estimating the impact of an intervention. This depends on the information that we get. If the information is available and is full information, definitely we're going to have a very accurate sampling. Okay. Thus, rather than matching on all values of the variable, individual units can be compared on the basis of their propensity score alone. So we can compare that on the propensity score, okay, which is, we can say that it is very effective. Okay, technically, not technically yet. Okay, these are still the motivations why it doesn't work, as I mentioned to you. Okay, if you run this, the control variable of X, okay, the estimate of beta on the control variable, and then you put dummy on that delta, okay, on the gamma, okay, of D, which is the treatment indicators. Okay, we would assume that the effect of treatment are constant across individuals. There's a linear of data coefficients. We need to make the assumptions to employ PSM, as we'll see a crucial assumption is made on the content of X, which should include all variables that can influence the probability of treatment, which very difficult, okay, to implement this. But we're able to do that in OLS, but the results may suffer from bias. I'm going to show you how it works in Stata later on. So the methods, how it works, okay, the greatest challenge in evaluating a policy intervention, especially in social science, is obtaining a credible estimates of the counterfactual. What does counterfactual means? What would happen to participant, that is the treated unit, had they not participated? Because we compare of two things, okay, those who participate and those who not participate. But how to make comparison if the person who participate not participate? What the results? So we want to create, we call it like an artificial data, if not created, if not participate. How it looks like, okay? If not, you participate the program, for example, English proficiency class, and then you got 80 marks in the final score of English language. But the question is, how would you score if you did not attend the course? Okay, how would you get the results? What was your result if you could not attend the course? Which something not observable. We don't know. Okay, I attend, I got 80, but if I not attend, I don't know. Then to know the effectiveness of those courses, you need to know what is the value of if you did not attend the course. Then you can say that, oh, if I'm not attend the course, I got 70. By attending the course, I got 80. So it is effective because we are comparing the the result, the outcome of 70 and 80, the difference is 10. So then we're going to test that using t-statistics. Then we can say that it is effective. But it is impossible because it is unobservable. Unobservable. So how to create that something which not observable to observable is the greatest challenge under this technique, that is the propensity score matching. Okay. So technically, this delta, the difference between potential outcome with and without treatment. So yi, y1, okay, which treated, y0 not treated. Okay, so to evaluate the impact of the program, we may compute the average treatment effect, ATE, that is expected delta I, the expected of the treatment, that is E, Y1, Y0, treated, not treated, for the same individual. Okay, for the same individual. Most often, we want to compute the average treatment effects on the treated. Sometimes that one for individual, but now we want to have an average. For example, a group of people, that is ATT, average treatment effects. Okay, average treatment effects on the treated. So that is ATT, expected of Y1, okay, minus Y0, given that being treated. Okay, D refer to treatment. But YO for treatment is not available. Okay. The problem is that not all of these parameters are observable. Can be written mathematically, is right and very nice, as they rely on counterfactual outcome. For instance, we can rewrite ATT as, okay, for this one, expected someone who attend or someone who attend, but if not, meaning that if he attend, but without attending, what is the expected value? Which is very challenging. So the second term is the average outcome of treated individual had they not received the treatment. We cannot observe that, but we do observe a corresponding quantity of the untreated and can compute like that. For those who did not attend, what is the value of YO? Not attend, D equal to 0. But does this YO of D1, YO, DO is match? That's the questions. Of this on the top here, E, YO, D1, and E expected YO with D0. Does this match? If not match, then you cannot compare. And you cannot take the value of YOD1 from YODO. In fact, you want to replace this YOD1 with YODO. Okay, here. So we only going to take this value if the matching is accurate. So that's the challenge of matching. So in this case, the difference between ATT and the delta can be defined as delta is average treatment effects, okay, of the treated plus we call it the selections bias, the bias. So if the selection bias is 0, SB is 0, then the average treatment effects of the treated is exactly to the changes of the treatment groups, okay, that we can say that the effectiveness. If high of this delta, then effective. If not high, low, then not effective. So the whole technique is to estimate this, to reduce the selections bias, SB, selections bias to minimum number, if possible into 0, so that exactly the changes is due to of this average treatment effects of the treated group. Okay, this I give you another example. Just now is on the what do you call it, English, but now for example on the teachers training program. Okay, maybe more motivated teachers who might be more likely to do well in terms of student test score. So those who attend, maybe they are very good, okay, very motivated. That's why they attend compared to the one who did not attend. So, but we want to eliminate the possibility of those behavior inherent in the model. We just want to discriminate because attending, not attending, as if that they are the same person. Those who attend, and if the same person did not attend, what they're going to gather. So in this case, we need to introduce this technique, PSM, because in randomized, I just explained again, in individual self-selecting into treatment may not accurate, okay? So in this requirement, PSM need to be valid. One is that conditional independence, there exists a set of X observable covariates, can be an independent variable, or it can be unwanted confounding factors. So we need to control this, okay, covariates. So the potential outcome are independent of treatment status. YI, YO, with certain, we call it independent treatment on the confounding variables, okay, of this. That is, the treatment depends on the X. Okay, the value need to be between 0 and 1 because of the probability. And then the conditional independence, okay, this one, conditional independence, implies that after controlling for X, the assignment of unit to treatment is as good as random, okay, as good as random, meaning that we can assume that because of the same thing, same platform, same, then we can say that it is as good as random. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Okay, these are some assumptions. Okay. Okay, what is the causal effects? Because we want to create these causal effects just to make sure of it. Okay. Okay, the causal effects, okay, the causal effects is a way, meaning that to explain to you, it is only because of the thing that we consider. How an outcome changes, for example, that's one on English proficiency, okay, as a direct result of some treatment. For example, like attending English course, okay, is the direct effects or the causal effects to the changes, okay, to the improvement of your English, for example. So PSM is a way to correct the estimations of treatment effects, controlling for the existence of the confounding factors, okay, that the variable that influence both the dependent variable and independent variable, which causing spurious associations. We want to eliminate that. Okay, as I mentioned to you, because of he has studied in very good English school, that's why he didn't take the course, but the result is quite good. We want to eliminate those things which create a spurious analysis, spurious relationships between those variables. So in this case, we're going to treat Y and outcome, T and treatment indicator, and X that is the covariate other on the pre-treatment. Okay, what would have happened to those who in fact receive treatment if they have not received treatment, or vice versa? We want to study on that. Who introduced these causal effects? In fact, coming from Rubin 1974, that is on potential outcome framework on the counterfactual framework. Okay, so the mechanics of it, how to do, there are a few steps. First, estimate the propensity score on it. And second, choose the matching algorithm that will use the estimated propensity score to match unrestricted unit to treated units. First, you got the score. Second, you match. Okay, using this the technique. Third, estimate the impact of the intervention with the match sample and calculate the standard error. Okay, once you got the score, you match and see the difference between the two, meaning that you reduce the bias, reduce dissimilarity of those sample, okay, and then you match it, meaning that's the closest possible of the sample that we have. So how to estimate the propensity score? The first step, there are 3 steps. Okay, the first step is to estimate the propensity score. We run a regression. Treatment D is a binary variable that determines if the observations has the treatment or not. If treatment, then 1, no treatment is 0. Sometimes you can change it. Treatment 0, no treatment 1. So but very careful when you interpret it, okay? But in common, 1 treatment, 0 no treatment. And then use a logit or probit model to estimate score because we need probability. So we use a logit, not a regular OLS, because it's an independent, we call it the binomial, okay, choice, yes or no, treated, not treated. Then we explain it using logit. We run using logit and probit. Okay, use the probability of some outcome with treatment and no treatment. So the propensity score is the conditional or predicted probability of receiving treatment given pre-treatment characteristics of X. What is the probability that we can, that is the propensity score, depends on the estimation technique that we use. Okay, and then we're going to match the observations from treated and control group based on their propensity score. Once you got the propensity score, then you match it. Several matching techniques are available: kernel, nearest neighbor, radius, okay, and stratifications. In this lecture, I'm going to explain to you using nearest neighbor kernel. Okay, I think that's the most celebrated, and radius sometimes being used. Okay, but these two I'm going to explain to you. For example, matching techniques, treated group and control groups, and then these are the probability that we get. Okay, within certain range, we want to match those. If with the control variable, okay, with X, explanatory variable, related to control variable, for example, their races, their income, okay, then we're going to eliminate those. Only with the probability that's almost match, then we choose, meaning that basically the explanatory variable are the same. For example, if races, maybe like, for example, Malay, in Malaysia, then maybe to have the same probability, you need to have same races. Income level, for example, the one that you X is above a certain level, high income level, then the probability almost the same. So that's how we match it, okay? So if the nearest neighbor matching, if we choose the nearest neighbor matchings, we try to minimize the difference of the probability. Minimize the difference. It can be 1 to many, many to 1. Okay. that for each treated observation I, select a control observation J that has the closest ACK. This one, that's the closest. This one may not be taken into as a, we call it as a neighbor, as a match. So we want to treat this one and this one, okay, between these two only. That minimize the probability difference I and J. Okay, kernel. Okay, this is matched with several control observation with weight inversely proportional to distance between treated and control observation. We have a weight, maybe here and here, the highest weight, lowest, lower, lower, and lower. The further the distance, the lower the weight. That is on the kernel. So meaning that need to have weight, more weight if it's close to the treated groups. Okay, that's another technique. Reduce matching, stratification, matching with common support. That is the what we call it, another techniques that can be radius, meaning that for certain range, then can be what do you call it, considered. Okay, how to interpret this? What the ATE, average treatment effects, okay, is the difference between the outcome of treated and control groups, meaning that ATE is the expected of changes, okay, of this treated group and there's not treated groups. But how to observe this non-treated group 0, okay, of the treated groups, they take from non-treated groups, IO. Only with the closest matchings of it, then we consider. The non-matchings will be dropped from the analysis. Similarly, with ATET, average treatment effects on the treated group, or ATT only, difference between the outcome treated and outcome of the treated observations if they had not been treated. Okay, so after matching on probability score, we can compare the outcome of treated and control observations. Yes, that's good. And then on the matching assumptions, what the mechanics of these matching assumptions. But I don't want to go to detail of matching assumptions. Times is very, I think, quite limited. Okay. And then we evaluate the validity of matching assumptions. Okay. After we match the applications of matching, we need to statistically significant difference between covariance mean of the treated and comparisons unit. If okay, there is a difference, then it's not good matching. So we need to know these statistics, okay, on these matching statistics. Okay, this also another things which I don't think need to discuss. Okay, for example, this is an analysis of Catenio 2010 using the technique on Journal of Econometrics. Okay, use data set from Elman 2005, who study the economic costs of low birth weight using different non-experimental techniques. You want to see the cost of low birth weight, okay? When you got the baby is underweight. And then what is the cost to the government to maintain that baby? If you want to study on that, okay? Using a rich database of singletons in Pennsylvania that combine 854 treated individual, meaning that out of 4,000, there's only 854 who is smoking. Is it because of smoking that you're going to have low weight baby or not? So 854 what do you call it, smokers. But can you select randomly on the races and so on? No, because it's always come together. You choose someone who is smoking and then you profile it he's someone from this where, from where, and working and so on. You cannot select it randomly. Okay, you can select randomly on the one who smoke or not, but the underlying information is already there. Okay, that's the meaning of it. So the outcome of this is, in this case, is B weight, meaning that baby weight, infant birth weight in grams. Available coverage includes mother age, education, whether married or not, and then first baby or not. So these are the matchings that we want to have. Okay, the author finds strong negative effects of about 250 and 200 to 250 grams of maternal smoking on birth weight, using both sub-classifications on the propensity score and regression adjusted methods. Okay, we show you. Okay, this is the data, B weight and so on. These are infant birth weight in gram, and these are so many variables. These are the data, okay, out of 4,000 observations, okay. This is, for example, father's age, father's education. This is mother education, mother's age, okay, and so on. And then whether the mother is smoking or not, one smoking, 0 otherwise. Okay, like this, MB smoke, this one, mother smoke, okay, and then MB smoke. This one, number of smoking, this one, mother smoke. Non-smoker, non-smoker, smoker, okay, non, and then smoker. So they're going to transform this into dummy, smoker into 0, non-smoker 0, smoker into 1. Yes. Type smoke, there is 864 mothers who are smoking, 3,778 non-smoking. Okay. So we want to know the effects. Okay. The effects, treatment effects. Okay, using regressions, adjustment. So average treatment effects on the variable is mother smoking. On baby weight, we notice that the coefficient is 234, quite high, grams. For those who smoke, they likely going to have baby which is underweight by 234 grams. That's the meaning. The treatment effect using regressions analysis is 234 grams reduction in baby weight and significant. The statistically is significant. How to improve that? For example, how to have this propensity score estimation? First step, you probit it. Okay, probit MB smoke marriage, the variable that we want to have. Okay, using probit regression to find out how the variable influence the participation's probability for one treatment and non-treated is 0 in the sample. So you got this probit marriage. These are the coefficients of it. Okay. After running the probit regression, we could know the percentage of PS, propensity score. We notice that out of 4,642, the mean of the PS is 0.18. The minimum is 0.12. The maximum is 0.87. As the propensity score is a probability, it has been interval 0 to 1. The average probability to participate in the treatment for all the individual is 18%. That's the average, okay? And then the estimated coefficients of probit regressions cannot be interpreted directly, because if you want to know the changes, it's not the marginal effects. You need to run marginal effects of it, margin dy dx all. So we can see that now is the marginal effects of mother's marriage, mother's education, mother's age, mother education, and father's first baby or not, to be weight. the marginal effects, okay, of it. So these are the starter command if you want to run this that is matchings, and then see the effects. Okay, we want to see this on the common supports of graphically. If the assumption hold, there must be overlap, whether it's good or not. But I'm going to show the most important thing is on the computer output, okay? Let me go to the computer output first. Okay, on the PS match to reduce the bias, okay, using this propensity score matchings, the command under starter is PS match 2. PS match 2. There are few command. PS match, PSM, okay, match also there. But the latest one, okay, the latest one is PS match 2. Okay, the one that you want to know, okay, the treatment is mother's smoke. Okay, mother of the baby smoke. And then the P score, the outcome is baby weight. Okay, by default is neighbor. Okay, by we call it the neighbor, close neighbor. Okay, and then you are using caliper that is on the radius of 0.01. So these are the caliper, the radius that we going to include in it. If it's more, then we're going to drop. We don't want to take it. Okay, we notice that if we run PS match, the difference for unmatched is, you see, the weight 3,137. And then we notice that the difference is 275 grams, the difference. Okay, so the standard error and the statistic, which is quite high. But we notice that, okay, if we use this PS match, the difference after reducing the bias is only 16. Is only 16. The effects between treated and control is only 16 using the propensity score matching. So which is, if the previous study found that reduction is 272 grams, we can say that it is exaggerated, because there are many reasons why there is a big changes between the two. It's not because of exactly the policy that have been introduced by the policymakers in that specific countries. Okay, so that is very important. Notice. So these are the tabulations of it. Okay, this is another thing which is very important on the goodness of the matching. Okay, the quality of the matching. We see that on the match, on the marriage, for example, match, you match. So the T statistics is minus 0.39. The p-value is greater than 0.05, which means that there is no significant difference. The null hypothesis that the mean value of the groups, of the two groups, that is the treated and non-treated, okay, not differ between the two. Meaning that even though you reduce to certain groups, okay, on the matchings, but it's still very good, because we fail to reject the null hypothesis that the mean value of the two groups do not differ. Okay, do not differ. We able to what do you call it? To eliminate that. Okay, to reject of it. So it's still valid, the match between the two. So this is to see the quality of the matching. This one is before matching, and then this one is after matching. So the null hypothesis cannot be rejected at 10%. That's good, eh? So the bias, okay, the bias being reductions, okay, reduce bias, this one on this column, reductions of bias. Okay, for merit, they can reduce like 96%. For mother's age, can reduce for 92%. Mother's education, 96%. First baby, 67%. Okay, they can reduce the bias quite high by having this matching. So the results that you're going to get is more accurate. What I can say is that more accurate because we reduce the bias. Not necessarily the value is bigger, sometimes it's smaller, but due to it's more accurate because the value of the reductions of bias is quite significant. Okay, in that case, through the propensity score nearest neighbor matching, it was possible to generate a control group which is similar enough to the treatment group to be used for the ATT, average treatment effects for treated groups in the estimations, because we reduce this amount. And then there is no difference. We fail to reject between these two. So it is a good proxy. So while on the percentiles, how much, okay, before matching and after matching, okay, we can see that there is big difference. The percentile smallest, okay, that is, we can see that there are much reductions from 50 and so on to very small numbers. And we can see that on absolute standardized mean difference for the PS before and after matchings, before and after, we see that, okay, unmatched is very big, but now it's very close to zero, meaning that they are really matched. So you can show the difference, okay, the before and after the matchings. Okay, another technique is if you, okay, if you able, you being lucky to have data for after and before and after. Okay, before and after the experiment occurs. For the same person, for example, you interview someone before and someone as after. You want to see the result, or you not interview, for example, like you collect some informations like his health, weight, okay, temperature, and so on. You want to see it is in the panel data, then we can use before and after. The average treatment of the treated groups, this one for treatment, okay, for this one for attending treatment, and then this one not attending treatment. Okay, this not attending treatment, YOAB for the treated, and then attending treatment for the treated groups. So this can be done easily by subtracting the results of it, the variable, okay, of those two things. Thank you very much. Any questions you can ask? I want to show you how it works in Stata for a while.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Tamat Sarmidi. We have one question from the chat room.
Okay.
From Pak Malik. Prof, in the case of public policy analysis, can we compare PSM and DID? Is PSM more appropriate than DID?
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, PSM is totally different from DID. DID is a technique of comparisons between two components. Okay, but in estimating DID, there are many techniques. Okay, for example, you just collect a panel data and then you compare of two periods before and after. So a lot of issues in doing that, because you are not, you may not comparing the same result because of certain things. Okay, that's why we need to do PSM. So PSM techniques can be used in DID. Meaning that is a subset. We estimate DID using PSM techniques. That's the right explanation of it. It's not like, so we can say that it's not a substitute. It's not substitute whether you want to use PSM or DID. No, it is, you are using DID, but whether you want to use PSM or not, we can use another technique. Just simply collect data that it depends on the nature of DID. Okay, and then if you want to reduce the bias, then you can implement PSM, probability score matching, so that you can compare with only matched groups. Like we can say that only apple and apple, like that. Pak Malik, begitu keadaannya.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Yes, welcome. So now I show you this one, the Stata. Okay. Yes, this is Stata. These are the results from KMO just now. I go to the do file because time constraint. Otherwise, we can do it one by one. Okay, but time constraint. I use this PSM using data that's Canteneo 2. That's I didn't provide you data for here because it's available in web. So you just run. For example, you can you see this one?
Yeah.
Can the SATA?
The SATA can.
Okay. So the do file, is it? Well, you can see.
Yeah, the do file can.
Okay. Yes. So run. We run the do file. Name of the file is Bengkel, and then you run this. Type smoke for the exactly the same thing. I reproduce again of this Stata estimate using the same data set, ATE. And then on the graphical as well. It sometimes takes a few moments to run. It depends on the computer that you are using, how good it is. You can change the name of the variable using this do file, and then you're going to get the results of this PSM. Okay. On the treatment effects, how it's changed. And then using different techniques, using kernel, using nearest neighbor, and so on. So, end of do file. For example, here treated control difference, okay, ATE, that is the average of the effects. You can reduce by 9. This one using kernel, okay, different techniques of matching compared to here. We are using different techniques. This one I wrote there, PSM with kernel matching, okay. I put asterisk, kernel matching, compare with this one. This one is using nearest neighbor. Nearest neighbor. PSM with nearest neighbor of 5 bits caliper. That is using 5. This number of variable is number of 5, okay, of 5. So yes, I think it's no problem at all. You can run this one. Any other question, class? I share with Pak Malik this do file. so that Pak Malik can share with you all later on the do file.
To the audience, is there any question? Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Tamat.
Yes, please.
Yeah. One question, please.
Yes.
Mr. Tamat. Thank you very much, Mr. Tamat. The material about comprehensive score matching is very interesting. But I'm afraid at this time I cannot absorb 100%. So
yes.
So I still have some.
Because the times is very limited. Of course, you need to read again and again. At least the slide that I provide, I'm not because some students may lecturer say that okay, your slide is wordy, meaning that too many words. But I make it purposely to make it wordy so that you can read it later. Yes.
Thank you, sir. I have one question, Mr. Tamat. But before I deliver my question, I sorry if maybe my question is not what maybe you have explained it, but I didn't absorb something like that. I mean, yeah. I just think that in propensity score matching, during apple-to-apple matching from the treated group and untreated group, there are some data from sample that not match each other. For example, like this. When we want to know the impact of credit to SMEs, so there are some SMEs that get credit and some not get credit, and we want to know does credit impact to SMEs or not. It means we have to compare SMEs that own credit and not own credit. Impact to their business. But when we want to know the impact of credit to their business, of course, we cannot only compare the indicator not only about credit, but also, for example, maybe the length of the business, and then maybe in the education of the entrepreneur, something like that. Yes. So when we have, for example, 100 respondents treated and 100 respondents not treated, is there a possibility that not all of the participants or not all of the respondents cannot go into the comparison and the propensity score matching? That's just that question, Prof. Tamat, Mr. Tamat. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for the one who asked the questions.
My name is Sabtono, Mr.
Yes. Okay, Sabtono. Okay, thank you. You are a student?
Yeah, I'm a student, sir.
Okay, good. Very good question. Very good questions. Okay. The purpose of this PSM, propensity score matching, in fact, is in line with your questions, because we try to reduce the bias. If you want to make some comparison between the two, the treated and non-treated, because we in fact want to know the effectiveness of the credits, in improving of the one who being treated, but we cannot get the information of the person being treated if not treated. That's why we compare with someone who is not treated. It is just a technique to understand or to know what will happen to the treated group if not treated. That's the explanations of it. That's why now we collect the non-treated as a reference, for the treated groups, but we are not interested in the non-treated. We are interested in the treated group. Yes, we just want to know if, the word is if, jika yang ditreated itu tidak menjalani treatment, bagaimana keadaannya? Saya bagi contoh, seperti menghadiri kuliah bahasa Inggris. Ada yang menghadiri kuliah bahasa Inggeris, ada yang tidak menghadiri kuliah bahasa Inggeris. Jadi bagaimana mau mengetahui kalau orang yang menghadiri kuliah tidak menghadiri kuliah? Kan tidak ada kan, sebab datanya dia sudah menghadiri kuliah. Sekarang pertanyaannya, jika dia tidak menghadiri kuliah, bagaimana mencari maklumat ataupun information yang mengatakan dia tidak menghadiri kuliah? Oleh itu kita mau banding dengan orang yang tidak menghadiri kuliah. Yeah, those who did not being treated. But how want to reduce the bias? Because some of those who not treated, for example, those who didn't take credit, okay, they might be not interested at all in credits. They might not suitable for credits. For example, on the financial the financial what do you call it stability, okay, of the person who did not take credit. Maybe he's not eligible to take credits. So if you compare these two, then the result may be biased. So want to reduce that. That's why we use a technique, we call it probability. The probability of these two groups, treated and non-treated, those who under same probability, we assume, this is a big assumption, we don't know the characteristic of the treated and non-treated in person, but we assume that for those who have a range, for example, 0.4 of the probability, it can be compared to 0.4 of those who not treated, which mean not taking a credit. So we using a nearest neighbor or kernel, then we match these two. So what is the score of the, for example, what is the income or what is the standing of the business? Those people who are not taking credit, okay, with the nearest neighbor score, that is 0.4, for example. Suppose he got 400, and then those who treated got 500. So the difference is 100. That's the effectiveness of the treatment or the credits, like that. Is it okay? Like that?
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Tamat.
So what your concern is right, meaning that we want to reduce that. Yes, because you say that, how about if not comparable? Yes, that's why we use this technique. We want to eliminate the group that is not being suitable or not matched, not comparable in the treatment. That's why we want to. If we are not using this treatment, we are not using this technique, we're going to select them all and then we compare. So the comparison, that's why on sample, I show you the comparison is, for example, like 240. But in fact, if we do the matching, the difference is only 16. So we can say that it's become better in terms of improvement, getting slower, meaning smaller. But in terms of the sample that we choose is exactly matched. That's why if you send a journal, they might ask you about these questions on the sample selections bias. So you say that we are using propensity score matching to reduce bias, then they are very happy to incorporate your comment in the analysis. That's good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tamat.
Yes, yes. Any other questions? If not, maybe we can take a break, 5 minutes. I've sent the do file to Pak Malik. So Pak Malik will share with you using Stata. Okay, for a while. I'm going to 5 minutes break.
To the audience, one more time, just a notification. If there is any question, you can use feature raise hand on the Zoom meeting, or you can write on the chat. And the present link we have shared in the chat room for today. We have one more material that will be delivered today, and maybe the audience can enjoy your own snack that have been prepared before.
Okay, dear students, we're going to touch or we come to the third topic on quantile regressions. I'm not going to talk much about this. I think many of you understand this on quantile regressions. Nothing new in quantile regressions. The only thing is that the main motivations of quantile regressions is on we call it as linearity. The words linearity. The parameter that we estimate, we always consider as linear. Boleh Mbak ya kita mulakan?
Yes, Prof.
Mbak Nuri, ya.
Yeah.
I think we can continue, eh?
Yeah. For the time,
Okay.
we have time 30 minutes, Prof.
30 minutes, yeah. Okay. I think this one is a very simple title, so we can have a quick what do you call it explanations on it. Okay. The motivations behind quantile regression is very simple. That I mentioned to you, students, dear students, is on the linearity. Because what happened is that when we run a regressions and then we got a parameter estimates, the estimated parameter, the beta, and then we treat that beta is the same for all the sample size that we have. If in times, then throughout the times. If cross section, meaning that same for all the cross sections, which sometimes not accurate. Okay, because if over time, or if not over time, then over some value, the effects might not be the same. For example, okay, if you have a small amount of money, okay, you can have a small business. The effects is small. But if you have big money, then the impact is different from small amount of money. Similarly, under these quantile regressions, we try to understand the different scenario under of the distributions of the data, for example, under the first quarter, quantile, second, third, so on. So we want to have that, how it looks like, the estimated parameter. Initially, we have a global that for all that we run regressions, and then we dive deeper to understand on each category. Okay, that's the meanings of quantile, or the motivations of quantile regressions. So under this, we explain the concept of benefit using quantile, formulate static and dynamic model for quantile, okay, perform an empirical analysis, and then we interpret. So I'm going to introduce you is quite very brief, okay. In fact, we can go detail, but since I'm going to cover the time series, cross sections, and panel data as well, okay, using Stata. But of course, due to time limitations, we're going to interpret or run very, very quick, okay. So who did this? Okay, introduced by Conker and Bassett, 1978, as a robust regression techniques, because just want to see whether it's robust or not, compared to if you have run regressions, and then how about if we have quantile it, whether the parameter is still the same or not. Then if the same, then we can say that it's very robust. If not, then we need to use other techniques if it is not robust. Okay, for example, in time series, okay, FDI and innovations, we have innovation, FDI, and so on. So we notice that, okay, the innovation activity may not be linearly the same with the level of FDI, FDY, HC, and IPR, for example, okay, patent protection index. So we need to have the variations of it, okay. So we need to have a quantile regression technique to be applied to provide a comprehensive picture of the relationship between innovations and its determinant at different points in the conditional distributions of innovations, on the different distributions of it. So quantile regressions, okay, allow for more flexibility in the estimations of FDI. Just an example, okay, FDI, you can use any variables. On innovation, to estimate a range of conditional quantile functions. Okay, conditional quantile function, QF, conditional quantile functions with Q certain quantile subject to of X, or of Y subject to certain X of this X, okay? We want to know what is the value of it. So the standard linear regression technique summarize the average relationships. Okay, we have to know that average relationship between set of regressors X and the conditional mean functions of Y that is subject to X. This provide only a partial view of the relationships, as we might be interested in describing the relationship at different point in conditional distribution of Y. Then we can say that the quantile regression provide that capability of doing it. Okay, so similar to conditional mean functions of similar regressions, we might consider the relationship between regressors and outcome using the conditional mean functions. Okay, we can, instead of using quantile, we can use different techniques of measuring quantile, okay, that is using conditional mean functions, also possible, because we are using median on the 50th percentile, and then 25, okay, interrange and so on. So it's possible. That's the basics of it, which is easily to absorb it, okay. So median regression is more robust to outliers than least square regressions, because it's not on the mean, but it's on the median, because in the 50th or 50th percentile. So just as regression model conditional moment, such as predictions of the conditional mean function, the quantile regression can be used to model conditional quantile of the joint distributions of Y and X. So these are the, what do you call it, the underlying explanations. So Y hat of X is the predictor functions of the expected X, which is Y minus Y hat, okay, the error. Denote the predictor errors, okay, so EX denote the loss associated with the prediction errors. If the loss of the errors is equal to E squared, we have square error loss, then least square is the optimal predictor. If not, then it's not. Under this, the loss of the expected errors, okay, and we can have the, what do you call it, the absolute value, okay, the absolute value. So the optimal predictor is the conditional median, the medians Y with conditions under X, okay, with conditions of X, and the optimal predictor is that beta hat, which minimize, okay, of the difference between X and between Y and X, okay, of B, that is the residuals. That's the minimizations process of the same things. So both square error and absolute error loss functions are symmetry. The signs of the predictor error is not relevant, okay. If the quantile Q differ from 0.5, there is an asymmetric penalty, which increasing asymmetry as Q approaches 0 or 1. If not symmetric, okay, then there is an asymmetry problem. So the advantage of quantile regressions, while OLS can be inefficient if the errors are highly non-normal, QR is more robust to non-normal errors and outliers. That's why for checking, we always check using robust these quantile regressions. QR also provide a richer characterizations of the data, allowing the researchers to consider the impact of covariates on the entire distributions of Y, not merely its conditional mean, okay, on the entire distributions of Y. So it's more rich in informations. So the quantile regression estimator for quantile Q minimize the objective functions of these functions, minimize it, okay, of this one, Q, okay, subjects to this one, the error, okay. So how it looks like, I mean that this non-differentiable function is minimized via the simplex methods. We use, some of you may learn it on simplex methods. I'm not going to detail of it. which guaranteed to yield a solutions in a finite number of iterations. Okay, so in Stata, quantile regressions, we have this command to call the quantile using QREC estimates, a multivariate quantile regressions with analytic standard error. By default, the quantile is 0.5. That is the median. So a different quantile may be specified with quantile after you put quantile and then you put an options what you want. Okay, BS QREC command estimate the model with bootstrap standard error. Okay, retaining the assumptions of independent error but relaxing the assumption of identically distributed IID. Okay, thus they are equivalent to robust standard error in linear regressions. So if you want to have robust standard error, you type BS QREC on the bootstrap quantile regressions. The IQREC command perform interquartile range regressions. You want to know interquartile between 25 and 75 quartile, so they produce interquartile. SQREC command produce QR, that is a quantile regression estimate for several value of Q simultaneously, allowing for differences between QR coefficient for different quantile to be tested. So if SQ for testing the estimates, okay? Okay, for example, some pattern, this one for FDI, okay? Data is 41 observations. And then you can see that if using Nick Cox plot command to illustrate the empirical CDF, okay, the distribution functions, which appears symmetry, this one, symmetry, okay? Note that 10, 15, 90th quantiles are roughly to 4.26 in the log scale. We can see that there are some difference. So the command is Q plot, PS stock, recast line, Y lab angle, X lab, using the line, okay? So this one. QREX, meaning that's on the patterns is 50th percentile. This is on median regressions. If you did not specify any quantile, is a median regressions. You notice that it is not on mean, okay? It is on the median, the coefficients with respect to median. If you do some differentiation, dy dx, to see it's not based on mean, but it's based on the median. But if you put quantile 0.25, okay, this is robust standard error, okay, using Bofinger, then we can have that. This is on the 25th quantile regressions. What's happened? Does it same or not? Then we have to compare. FDI is minus 0.24, but when you have the first quarter is minus 0.34, which is higher, the value, the coefficients of FDI and the innovations, okay? So meaning that it's not different, it is a difference. But to see the difference, you need to test between the two. Okay, and then for iterative using Bootstrap, IQREC pattern FDI, because we use interquantile, quantile 0.25 and 0.75. So interquartile regressions, we just consider from 75 to 25 data sets. So these are the FDI. We can see that minus 0.15 only, instead of the first 25 is 0.3, minus 0.3, now reductions of this one. So it's getting richer and richer, the analysis. SQREC pattern FDI, okay, this one, to estimate quantile, you put there the value, quarter one and mean, and then the second quarter, okay, 25, 5, and 75. Replication for 100, okay, with SQREC simultaneously. What does it simultaneously means? Okay, here, down here is quantile 25, first quarter, okay, but it will give you the 0.5 and then quarter 75. That's why we can compare. Okay, here FDI is minus 0.5, 0.24, and here is 0.34, meaning that the effect is not linear on the lower part, mid, and high part difference. Okay, so that's when we specify on 25, 5, and 75. And then if you want to have full, okay, like you want to minimize quarter 1, 25, 5, 75, 9, and so on, you can get it. Okay, the results will produce to you, and then you can compare. Okay, if you want to test the hypothesis using a difference, okay, test for different quantiles. So you can see that quantile test, quantile 25, 50, and 75 for FDI. Okay, you test it, you can see that whether they're statistically different or not. So the estimates fail to reject equality of the estimated coefficients. Okay, for these three estimates at the first quarter, second, and third quarter, okay, the probability of chi-square of this F is 0.74, meaning that the null hypothesis is equal to 0. We fail to reject the null hypothesis which equal to 0, which means that the FDI is equal throughout the three quantiles. Even though we notice that in this case, there are different of FDI, minus 3.4, minus 3.4, 2.4, and 0.5. But statistically, there are no difference. Okay, so meaning that maybe the changes or the difference is very small, only 0.0 somethings. Okay, that's why it's not significant. Or for example, you can test for two quantile, for example, PRI. You notice that also no difference between quantile first quarter and the third quarter. There is no difference between two because we fail to reject compared to this one. You can test it out. It's very interesting. Okay. So using Azevedo routine QRQREC, okay, available from you have to install it. We can view how each covariate effects vary across quantile and contrast them with the fixed OLS estimate, like the QREC. Okay, we have 0.5 and so on. That is, we obtain QRQREC, the figure here. For example, for this variable, okay, for the different quantile, then we have difference. Graph how the effect of FDI and other determinant vary over quantile. This, for example, for GDPC, this for FDI is very small, but you can refer to your notes, make it bigger. PRI, IPR, and HC. You see that it varies over 0 and 1. So from this graph, okay, using QRQREC, then you can clearly understand how it looks like, okay, over a different quantile. Okay, it also can for count data, okay, that is on the binomial trend, quantile regressions, QCount, okay, routine Miranda available on SSC install, okay, this OLS and QR, some of the paper, okay, we can, and then there are also panel regressions, panel quantile regressions, quite new by Powell, 2016. The command is QREGPD. QREGPD. You can install it. SSC install QREGPD. Okay. Then most of the literature extending quantile method to panel data, including additive fixed effects in the quantile functions. So that's the trend nowadays. You panel and then you quantile the panel analysis. So you need to install this in your computer to make it a quantile panel, QREQPD AMCMC more Mata. Okay, use NLS work. Yeah, this is data available on the data. So for example, in this sets, we make it a panel, okay, and then we run of the same things. I give you another example how we works on what do you call it, this quantile regression paper. Me and Prof. Lau, I think he's a very famous in UNS. Impact of innovations on economic growth evident from Malaysia. This paper is I think Q3, okay, and it's Scopus or Q2 or Q3, yes. Under the evidence for Malaysia, exactly the same thing. We are using quantile regressions. So quantile 10, we on the quarter, this Q deciles, we are using decile 75, 90. Okay, so the total grant results is different throughout different quarter, which indicate that FDI is important, but need some amount to affect the total grant. Okay, so the gist of the paper is table 8 report a quantile regression results, and the finding shows that the effects of innovations using total patent grant differ considerably, having a strong effects on economic performance at lower quantile 10 to 25, and then we can test whether it's different or not. Okay, and then this quantile regression graph, we notice that this for grant, okay, at the lower is positive, at the lower quantile is positive, but at the higher is negative here. So at the higher quantile grant, research grant get negative effects. Okay, so similar with this one, got negative effect, population growth, but for human capital, you see that initially was low, but at high is positive, which consistent to theory, On this institution also consistent, low institutions negative, but when high institution is positive. So that is very capital, is almost stagnant, same. That is also important finding, is constant return to scale, okay, of this one. So in fact, it is very rich, okay, informations when we run using a quantile regression. These are few papers that's affecting, and then you can show that using quantile regressions at a very recent paper also using quantile regressions. So with that, I think I end the sessions. Okay, and I show you the Stata, how it works using quantile regressions. Let me share you. Okay, you have to run the do file, which I provide to you on quantile. Okay, this is on the quantile regressions, ClearSetMore. We are using data of InnoFDI. Okay, USD. So we can run it. So you can specify the drive, and then you see this the quantile of P stocks. These are the iterations on Bootstrap quantile. It takes few moments to complete it on quantile. it depends on the computer. If you have a good computer, then it's very fast. If not, this is on the interquantile regressions. I'm going to share you the data and the, the do file with Pak Malik. Okay. Any question, class? If you have any questions regarding these three topics or quantile regressions, you may do so. Otherwise, I give back the sessions to Mbak Nuri, ya?
Yes, Prof.
Okay. Thank you very much. You may continue. If there are questions, then I will answer the questions.
Is there any question to all participants for this quantile regression? Okay, just remember this material PCA, PCM, and quantile regression will share on the chat room. Don't forget to fill the present link to make a certificate. Okay, I think there's no question from the participant. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, we came to the end of our webinar. We would like to thanks again to the Associate Professor Tamat Sarmidi, PhD, for the great presentation and the audience for active participation. The explanation from Professor Tamat Sarmidi, we can understand that principal component analysis, or PCA, explain pattern of correlation within a set of shared variables by identifying sets of highly correlated variables and infer an underlying factor structure. And then PSM, or propensity score matching, is matching technique to eliminate selection bias in observational studies by balancing covariates between treated and control groups. And the last materials is quantile regression. Quantile regression is to estimate the effect of explanatory variables on the dependent variable at different points of the dependent variables conditional distribution. Hopefully the presentation will be beneficial for you all. I apologize for any mistakes that I have done from the beginning. Thank you for your attention. Wallahul muwaffiq ila aqwamit thoriq. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
you have any announcement? So I return the session to Miss Cindy. Mbak
Baik,
Cindy.
terima kasih kepada narasumber dan moderator kita pada hari ini oleh Associate Profesor Tamat Sarmidi, PhD dari Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia, dan Saudari Nurin Resti Cahyani dari Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta atas ilmu dan materi yang sangat luar biasa. Demikian kita tutup acara hari ini dengan ucapan hamdalah secara bersama-sama. Alhamdulillah. Terima kasih kepada para peserta yang telah mengikuti acara dari awal sampai akhir. Semoga ilmu dan materi yang didapatkan bermanfaat bagi kita semua. Dan tidak lupa mengingatkan kepada para peserta, masih ada acara webinar selanjutnya yang diadakan pada hari Rabu, tanggal 26 Mei 2021, dengan pembicara oleh Profesor Norlin Khalid di jam yang sama. Atas nama seluruh panitia penyelenggara, kami mengucapkan terima kasih dan mohon maaf apabila dalam pelaksanaan terdapat kekurangan. Akhir kata, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Terima kasih.
Ya, sama. Masih. Assalamualaikum.
Terima
Oke.
kasih hadirnya.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Prof. Rahmat, Prof. Tamat.
Ya, welcome. Ya, welcome. Baby.
Ya.
Ini Pak Malik macam mana nih? Pak Malik nih, nggak pulang-pulang nih ke Malaysia nih.
Nggak boleh pulang ke Malaysia.
Ya, Prof, ini harus kuarantin 14 days, Prof.
14 days.
Tapi harapnya sehat ya Pak Malik ya.
Amin, amin.
Insya Allah. Insya Allah saya segera ini, Prof, apply travel authorization ke immigration.
Enggak perlu kalau bisa dibuat melalui online saja pun nggak bisa. Enggak apa Pak Malik.
Oh iya, Prof. Kalau yang
nggak usah terburu-buru. Nanti sudah datang kemari nggak boleh pulang lagi.